I'm pretty sure I have painted myself into a politically incorrect corner as I've talked about women in the first century and what Paul, under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, let's blame God, has written to and for and about women. Once again, this is beginning in verse 11. In the same way, the women are to be worthy of respect, not malicious talkers, but temperate and trustworthy in everything. Well, who would that not apply to in God's family? These are qualities, these are attributes of character that every follower of Jesus should have. That the cultural aspect and context for what Paul was writing has some specific implications, but the general principles haven't changed over the centuries. These kinds of character qualities never happen by accident. To be worthy of respect, that requires intentional effort toward authenticity, honesty. It requires that your character be built on the foundation of truth about yourself and about others. And then he goes on, not malicious talkers, people who are worthy of respect don't talk maliciously about others. Can't resist saying, I've seen on my social media, on my Facebook feed, that Facebook is considering changing their name. And sometimes I think one of the potential name changes should be malicious talk. There's so many political and philosophical, I don't know. It just seems like there's acrimony and anger and resentment and accusation and there are some inspiring and uplifting things. I connect with people I went to high school with 50 years ago and people from my ministry life decades ago. And it's not all bad, but I do see we have today, perhaps at our access, more ways to talk maliciously than ever before. And I don't think that this whole malicious talk thing is anything new. Technology is new, but the urge to put somebody else down is not. I don't know if you can hear it in the background, but we've had a police helicopter circling our area this morning, and I do not know what they're looking for. I hope whatever it is they find, because I don't want it breaking in my house. And then he goes on to say, instead of being malicious talkers, they're temperate. Well, okay. Temperate, and I talked about this, can apply directly to the use of alcohol. That temperance for centuries has been boxed into the context often, I'd say especially in the last century, of alcohol. And I shared with you, I grew up in a little church that had a ladies' temperance union, and it wasn't about temperance, it was about abstinence. And here Paul writes, not abstinent, but temperate. That's a difficult thing for some people. And it's not only about you don't drink wine to excess. You are moderate. It has to do with your entire lifestyle. To be temperate, you must be balanced. Okay. And then, last thing of all, trustworthy in everything. What follower of Jesus should that not apply to? To everyone. To be trustworthy in everything. Trust is such a key in every relationship. Whether it's in your career, in the marketplace, whether it's in personal relationships, or whether it's in your closest relationships, trust it's the key. It's the cornerstone. No relationship is any better than the level of trust that is in it. And so, the Holy Spirit, through Paul, says to us, ladies, be trustworthy in everything. And oh, by the way, gentlemen, you too. This idea of trust takes time to build, but a moment to destroy. A friend of mine shared with me an idea that there is an aspect of trust that I grant you trust because God has brought you into my life. So I trust you conditionally. Here's the condition. I trust you until you prove to not be trustworthy. And at that point, then I have to make some decisions about to what degree am I going to trust you. Sometimes people fail because of circumstances beyond their control. Things don't happen that were promised, but not because the promiser didn't make the appropriate effort. It's just that things happen they couldn't control. Oh, okay, that's generally not a reason to withhold trust. But there are times when you have granted trust, I have granted trust to a person, and they demonstrated at once, twice, 3 strikes with me, generally, and you're out, that you're not trustworthy. You demonstrate trustworthiness by being worthy of trust. It's just that you keep your word. When I was younger, much younger, in my 20s, I felt like I had to say yes to everything, which made my life, in a lot of ways, a living hell. Because I spent my whole life trying to remember who I had said yes to about what, and if I'm doing it, and can I do it, and oh, what if I can't? That's a horrible way to live. I came across a little, it was like a little card that said, do what you promised you would do. And I put that on right above my computer screen. Do what you said you would do. That makes a person trustworthy. Don't glibly or lightly make a commitment. Measure, can I make this promise? Well, of course you can make the promise. Can I keep the promise? That's the most important question. People who are trustworthy in everything, they don't say yes to everything. They can't. In fact, people who are trustworthy in everything have learned how to say no to the things that they have to say no to in order to be able to follow through when they have said yes. This is a mark of maturity, knowing what I need to say no to and knowing what I need to say yes to. A godly woman is trustworthy in everything. Well, guys, you're not exempt. And then he goes on in verse 12, he says, a deacon must be faithful to his wife. Well, yeah, that sounds familiar. Remember back when he was talking about elders, he said should be the wife or the husband of one wife. And there are some theologians and Bible scholars have paraphrased this, they must be a one-woman man. And here, a deacon must be faithful to his wife. I often, not so much anymore, but I used to often come up against a good question where there were men who had gifts and skills that could be applied into the role of deacon or elder, but who had been divorced. Now, some of those men had been divorced before they ever even came to know Jesus. And for me, I'm looking at their lives. It's one book, but there's 2 discrete chapters at least. One chapter is before I met Jesus. The other is after I met Jesus. Now, each one should have their own conscience about this. But for me, when a man or a woman, for that matter, have divorced before they knew Jesus, they came to know Jesus and their entire world of values was set right, or began a process of being set right, so that their life changed. Now, does this BC divorce disqualify them from the role of deacon or elder? Well, you can decide that. And there are others who have, what about marrying someone who has been divorced? And are they unfaithful to their first spouse or previous spouse? And I'm engaging in, oh gosh, it gets really complicated. Really, Paul's not talking about any of that right now. He's just talking about a deacon is faithful to his wife. Are you married? Be faithful. Being faithful to your wife, quickly we start thinking in terms of sexuality, right? I don't step out on my wife. I don't cheat. I don't flirt. And yes, that's an essential part of this faithfulness to your wife. There's also this aspect, and I think it gets sometimes overlooked. If I'm going to be, I'll just personalize it. If I'm going to be faithful to Debbie, then one of the ways that my faithfulness is expressed is in how I treat her with regard and dignity and respect. I realized many years ago now that almost every wife really makes pretty easy target for low comedy, right? Well, hey, so do all husbands, right? And so, the cute little joking kinds of things that often husbands say about their wives, little friendly jabs, I have tried, and there are times I don't succeed, but I've tried to eliminate those, because part of my faithfulness to my wife is to treat her character, her person, with care and dignity and faith. So, guys, when you follow this, a deacon must be faithful to his wife. Hey, pay attention. How do you address her? What do you say about her? What do you say to her? And how do you say it? A faithful husband doesn't put his wife on a pedestal and tiptoe and always on eggshells. That's not what this is about. It's that you see her for the wonderful beauty, the precious jewel that you've been given by God. Well, the other side of what that has to do with, according to Paul, we're going to come up against next time. And it's not the first time this idea has appeared in this passage, but we got to shut her down for now. I'll see you next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy. And oh, by the way, I'll be wearing the same shirt.